Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Faryal and we're very pleased that today we are with Jason Grant. Jason Grant is a very seminal trainer on user experience, and Jason has masters in user design, which is linked with psychology to a greater extent because he, you know, help this to or not only the students. I'll come to the academic part as well. He helps the companies and he helps organizations with their user design and user experiences as well. So he has done his masters from University of London, and he runs this organization called Fresh Mind. Fresh Mind is basically a process that is developed by Jason Grant, which takes you through to clear up your mental blocks. So, with not much ado, I would like Jason to tell us. We would like to hear your experience, and he has a 15 years experience of this, and he had been coaching and teaching online as well. So after this session, I will post the link if you would like to join him. So without much ado, I really welcome you to the show, Jason Grant. Thank you so much for being here. We're very honored, very excited. So please tell us a little bit about yourself before we begin. I mean, your journey and how it come to you from, a user design, a technical field, you come to the psychological field. And I've seen your work and I love what you do. So please tell us about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. It's really an honor to be speaking to you and such a prominent specialist, actually, and expert in your own field of emotional intelligence and emotions. So I really applaud you and salute you for that. Basically, my story is that I first entered the world of technology as I think it's a bit of a cliche to say, but guys tend to be interested in things like mathematics, engineering, building things, and so on. So I was kind of quite a typical guy in that sense. I was very early on interested in and very good at mathematics and all those kind of things. And that led me into the world of technology very early on in my life, and also science and scientific process. So I studied both science in terms of mathematics and chemistry, but then computer science and eventually management science and these kind of psychological aspects of what brings everything together in terms of making it appeal to people. Because we find over time that you can build things, but people won't come to use them unless they're psychologically appealing and they have a certain level of experience to them. The easiest way to illustrate what experience is that if you go, for example, into an old broken down Fiat car and drive around, you might get a back injury. Whereas if you go into a brand new Ferrari, you'll have a completely different experience of that ride. And so both of those are cars. One has a very terrible experience, another one has very excellent experience that you might tell the stories about for the rest of your life because you took a ride in a Ferrari. So the process of designing experiences is one at looking at human psychology and really understanding what makes humans tick and how the human psychology works, so that we can present people exactly what they want, when they want it, and how they want it, so that they end up using it and reusing it and sharing it with the rest of the world.
Amazing. And you have a master's degree from University of London, and then for 15 years you had been actively mentoring and giving your expertise to the organization. So what is the best thing and you found out about this, the connection of user experience and the human psychology, and I absolutely agree here. Every decision in the end is an emotional decision.
Well, so I used to go along to very lengthy discussions in an East London mosque about God and meaning of life, and debates between Muslims, Christians, atheists, Jews, Buddhists, all that kind of stuff, and different perspectives on what is life and what is the meaning of life. And at one point, there was a professor from University of Cambridge who was a atheist, and somebody asked him from the audience, what is the purpose of life? Why are we alive? And he responded with a statement that says, life is just an experience. So that made me think a lot as an experience designer, that if he thinks of life as entire life is just an experience, that really raised the question to me as to who is the one that is experiencing the experience, and how does this really process of experience arise. And what I came to conclusion of is that there is an irreducible essence to each human being, which is the word being. We are all human beings, so it's the being that is experiencing the life experience, and it, the being, is experiencing it through interactions with objects, events, and so on. So as we are speaking right here, somebody is listening to this and they are constructing a certain experience of what they're hearing. They might disagree with it, in which case that might bring about disagreeing thoughts, which creates disagreeing emotions such as anger, resentment, pride, all these kind of things, even fear. Or it might agree with what they're thinking, in which case they might go, yes, I'm right, and Jason is such an incredible guy, and I feel good that I know this. Either way, the experience is happening through the interaction, which is a product of our senses: hearing, tasting, seeing, touching, and smelling, actually having an input, understanding that, or constructing an understanding of that, and then experiencing that. So that whole process is actually what I've become more and more interested in, and really understanding and analyzing, to be able to really deconstruct it and reconstruct it in a way that is actually pleasant to the humans as opposed to unpleasant. So we seem to be living, majority of us seem to be increasingly living in an unpleasant lifestyle. We're not happy with our children. We're not happy with ourselves. We're not happy with our house. We're not happy with our job. We're not happy with a wife or a husband, or name a person, name a thing, name a program. We're not happy with it. And the question arises, why is that so? And the answer really is in the fact, or seeming fact, that we ourselves individually have not adapted to the world that has changed in the last bunch of years, and that keeps changing rapidly more and more. With the pandemic, that change has been a lot more sudden and a lot more visible and impacting than the cumulative change that has been happening since things like internet have reached us. With the internet, we have the ability right now to be speaking live in this conversation, and we've never spoken before, and we've set a subject and we're covering that subject. This was utterly unimaginable even 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. And now it's both psychologically normal, technologically possible, even free. It has got the potential to be amplified to the entire society, to the entire world, planet, and all of that can happen in a split second. Our minds have not been trained, and certainly have not been adapted to that level of impact. And in many respects, what we're afraid of is afraid of success a lot. It may be the case that what we say ends up resonating with everyone in the world, in which case it's on us and our own individual responsibility to actually stand behind the words that we have spoken.
Yeah, and you talk about the COVID, and even before the COVID, we were just talking about it in the chat room that this generation has a lot of input. And being an academic, you are also teaching a lot of people, and you have a wide experience. And I have experienced this, this agitation. There is this anger, this angry young man syndrome that we see, and people are very agitated on the edge all the time. And this COVID, even it has made me a little edgy because I feel myself snapping at my kids, and get losing my temper. So this psychological assault and this mental assault that we are seeing is don't you think has been amplified due to the COVID, and it's getting a kind of a norm that everybody is being edgy and all that. So what would you say about that?
Okay, let's first describe a little bit about three axes of human development. One is called waking up, which is about us becoming more and more aware of what's going on, especially what's going on within our own psychology, our own inner space, not outside, as in Donald Trump tweeted this, or Kanye West said this, or some angry wife on LA Housewives said something to another angry wife on LA Housewives. Not about that, but being aware of our inner space, our own inner dialogue. So that's waking up, becoming aware. Second axis of human development is growing up, becoming responsible for our own life. Maybe it's about washing the dishes. Maybe it's about moving the dirty pair of socks from the living room. Maybe it's about actually going and earning some money, maybe through hard work if we can't do anything else. That's growing up. And really kind of shutting up about it and not saying to the world that we're a victim because we now suddenly had to wash the dishes. And the third axis of human development is cleaning up, which means removing all the psychosocial programming that's no longer working for us. Perhaps 10 years ago, it used to be the case, perhaps, that I could go out there, do a day's work, and earn enough money to supply me food for a whole week. Nowadays, if I do a day's work, I may earn enough money to just earn for one day, okay, of food. The world has changed. Economic situation has changed. So the things that we used to do 10 years ago, even think, no longer work. Some people used to get paid a lot of money to just, for example, transcribe words from a recorded piece of audio to paper and type it up. That used to be quite a well-paid job. Nowadays, I can use 5 or 6 different transcription tools, upload a piece of video. Within a minute, I've got a perfect transcript back, ready, potentially free. So that job is no longer necessary. And the person who used to do the transcription now has to clear all their outdated programming and actually bring on new skills and new capabilities. That also requires potentially a little bit of waking up and growing up. What happens in that process is when we're holding on to this psychological trauma, baggage, impurities, as we call it, those things eventually turn into little objects within us. They might be little sharded personas, like my old self, a hurt child, or the person I used to be when I was a manager at a big corporation, or managed by a bad manager at a big corporation. All those kind of little constructs that we've created for ourselves, identities, become objectified and constrained, boxed off inside our own inner space. What happens is at key moments in our lives, either very changing moments such as COVID, pandemic, and so on, or very relaxing moments such as we're relaxing in Mexico at a 5-star resort, those constructs those inner objects that we've created, they're actually technically in Bible and places like that called demons, okay? Those demons come out and start assaulting us from within. At that point, we either have the opportunity to deal with those demons, or we psycho project them onto the nearest person to us. Usually that is a wife, husband, mother, father, child, grandparent, auntie, uncle, brother-in-law, mother-in-law. Depending on who we psycho projected at, they'll bounce that back at us, or they will get traumatized through that process. And the experience of life becomes increasingly more and more of a downward spiral. We psycho project our own inner demons, and depending on the level of awakening that we have within us, we're able to destroy the entire world with that, because we're possessing, and the word possessing there is very interesting, because we are quite literally possessed by our own ideas of what's right or wrong, ideologically possessed. That ideological possession can be amplified through these modern systems that I outlined earlier on to entire world. And that seems to be happening more and more through social media and media in general, where we sit here and we can go and rant for 4 hours about how we are victimized, how we're hurting, how we are right and everyone else is wrong. Now, other people, especially children, might be listening to that and go, oh, that is absolute truth. Maybe if I do that too, I may also be like somebody else who has 20 million followers on Twitter. Maybe that is the way forward, instead of actually the opposite, which is deal with your issues, project the goodness and solutions, and if you've got nothing better to say, then shut up. So at that point, I'll shut up.
No, that's very important. And most of the time, I love this concept that you said, that we have constructs of our own self-identities, the hurts that we have, and, the unresolved issues that we have, cultivated in us and kind of nurtured in us, and they're always there hidden. So something bad goes on and we are like explosive and, throwing our hurt and the neglect and the unresolved issues and projecting in, psycho projecting our demons on others. I love this concept, and it is kind of a universal concept, in all religions, and even now the psychology backs it also, the neuroscience backs it also, that when you said that your inner self is shut down, and this is what we call the sympathetic limbic system, working. This is how it works. And so the next thing is that most of us are not prepared for this psychological assault. What is hurting other people? But we're not very empathetic people, actually, to begin with. So when somebody start, spewing hate or, psychologically assaulting us, we're not prepared for it. And so we don't know how to handle. And like you very rightly pointed out, that we have never been trained emotionally. Right from the beginning, and this is what we are striving for as well. So please shed a light on that how to handle such situation when somebody is psychologically assaulting and we are just going about our lives, and then phew, it happens to end and we are dumbfounded, we don't know what to do now.
So let's try and flip this around. You're saying we're not prepared to deal with psychological assault. In some respects, it's actually possibly even easier to make the argument that we are only prepared to deal with psychological assault. That's all we are ever really expecting. Not always, not all, but majority. And because we have been mostly brought up in an assaulting and insulting environments. For example, I spent 3 years in war in Bosnia. That is a national level psychological assault where one type of people are being told they're perfect, the oppressors, or depending which side of the radio you're listening to. So one side would be the oppressors and they're perfect. The other side are the oppressed and they totally need to go from the planet. They need to be eradicated. That's why we've seen in Bosnia the biggest genocides in the history since Second World War in Europe. And this was actually institutionalized psychological assault. Radovan Karadzic, the leader of Republic of Srpska, is a trained psychologist, clinical psychologist, and also very, very sick in the head. And he institutionalized these psychological assaults across Bosnia, which led to a whole bunch of genocide. And this is at the grandest level, the biggest assault we know of is genocide, such as Srebrenica genocide or what Hitler did to Jews, which is also another grand assault, and so on. And this is a massive psycho projection of people who are actually woke and awakened. They know how this works, but haven't cleared up their shadow. So what they do is that awakening amplifies their own inner shadow and psychologically assaults everyone that looks even remotely different to them. And who looks different to them is all the people who have not got those same demons. Okay, so they're looking for people who are exactly the same like them. And guess what? Usually there isn't exactly the same person who's been messed up psychologically in the same way. So you'll spend your entire life looking for another person like yourself. You will never find them, because we're all unique, at least to some extent, and there is always some difference. And if we focus on those differences, we will find war. Okay, if we focus on similarities, we will find peace. When we find peace within ourselves, we will psycho-project peace into the world. But because we've been brought up in psychologically assaulting and physically assaulting environments, we have actually best prepared for dealing with assaults at all times. And we look for an assault even when there isn't one. So if there is peace, we look to psycho project an assault onto someone else, because that's all we know how to deal with. So when you say there is a pandemic of angry young men, you might want to look at who has projected the anger into them. And it could be that it's angry women that did that in the first place, who might have had that projected to them by some other older young men or psychopaths. And so the saga continues until we decide to stop, to break the chain of psychological abuse and actually say, hold on a second, I will at the very least not partake in this psychological abuse, or this is kind of for extra points, I will actually project peace, love, kindness, not even empathy, because most of the time when you're empathizing with other people, you realize you're empathizing now with victim mentality. You're empathizing with self-constructed suffering. Okay, so I don't need that. I want peace, love, kindness, happiness, bliss. And I need to construct that within me and then project that out there. So I can, with compassion, understand that somebody is victim to circumstances and that they're suffering, but that's their victimhood and their suffering. And for me, the role and the job is to show them the way in which they can be peacefully progressive. And that's what I'm on a mission of.
Very beautifully explained, very eloquently explained, and I totally agree. This environment is very hostile, and yet we have just learned to survive, and keep our barriers to ourselves. And you have rightly pointed out the institutionalization of this assault. When we see it, at the management level, even the person who have power, they tend to like abuse it, and then all this assault come from a new range of directions. And I totally agree on that, and this need to be done. And I utterly in love with the work that you're doing, and there's so much need. I mean, there is so much room for that, and this is what we are also trying to do. That okay, something went wrong with you in your childhood, but this is you right now. it's never too late to begin. You can change your word around. Like Jason said that he has this fresh mind training, and like we offer training. So this is a very high time that we need to understand what's wrong, what's been happening to us. So Jason, what will be towards conclusion of our this session? What would you like to advise them to how to recognize that maybe you are the one, doing this mental assault unknowingly, and how to handle better when you are being assaulted?
So first of all, the Albert Einstein said, two things are infinite: universe and human stupidity. But I'm not sure about the first one. So I think I would flip that around. Let's flip that around. Two things are infinite: universe and human stupidity. But I'm not sure about the last one. Okay. So let's say universe is infinite, but our stupidity is finite. So we got to deal with our own stupidity as a finite
Absolutely.
problem. And that stupidity is when we are self-harming, harming ourselves. So if I tell my wife that she is ugly, that she's a terrible wife, that she annoys me, that I'm angry because of her, I'm self-harming myself because I'm living with that person. What I can do is I can deal with my own stupidity. I coined the phrase, you pay for your own stupidity. In other words, often the time we do stupid things for which we have to pay with either money or lifetime or energy and so on, or all of the above. Uh, if you ride your bike over a bunch of broken glass, you'll burst a tire, and then that's going to cost you either some time or money, or time and money to fix it. It's your own stupidity for
Effort.
riding over glass. Now, if you shout at the people nearest at you and not actually look to work with them somehow, there needs to be an element of willingness on their behalf to actually do the same, then what you're going to create is a lot more enemies around yourself. And then your life is going to be terrible because you're creating war, you're creating a competition, you're creating either I'm right or you're wrong and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, if you look for those commonalities and actually amplify those and look to, really kind of work with differences, and that's fine. For example, I might like fishing and my wife doesn't. So sometimes I'll go fishing on my own. Sometimes she might join me, but she might just kind of sunbathe on the corner. That's fine. And sometimes, she'll go for running and I don't like that. So she can go on her own, or I might join her for a little bit, and that's that. So you can, come closer on those differences. And so that's really the advice that I would give first to myself and then everyone else. And yes, we fail in that process, but over time we can fail less and less and less until we completely reduce human stupidity out of existence and live in an infinite universe where everything's possible. The end. Happy story.
Oh yeah, I wish actually life is not complicated. We try to make it complicated.
Yes.
There is something in Punjabi. My mother used to say that in a language that says, "Jinu palna nahi unnu badidra kyun kariye?" That means if you don't want to break something, why deshape it? So
Yes.
it goes for the relationships, that if you don't want to break those relationships, why you're deshaping it, or you're like you said that we should go for the commonalities rather than the differences, because differences will create war. I love that concept. The differences are war and the commonalities are the peace. So we should be more harnessing towards the peace. And it was a pleasure. I mean, I would like to have you again and again, and I like and loved the talk. And it was great collecting your wisdom. I really love this idea that we should be at least cognizant of our own stupidities. Like if we yeah, the least we think that we are the superheroes, we don't do stuff, but at least this human stupidity can be curtailed only if we realize our own stupidities. So I think this mental assault is projecting your own insecurities onto others. If we understand the root cause from where it is stemming, I think we can create it in a better way. So thank you so much, Jason. I mean, it was wonderful talking to you. It was a wonderful talk, and I love some concepts that you have given. I wish you all the best, and please take care of yourself. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much too. And that's a great piece of advice. Take care of yourself, and as such, you will be able to care of others.
Yeah, that is true. So please take care of yourself, be kind, be empathetic, and be peaceful. Now I'm adding that as well. Allah Hafiz and goodbye. Thank you.
Allah Hafiz.